Hey, welcome back. We have a very special knife here today. Super duper excited to get this one open. I'm using the Demco 80-20.5 to do it, but it's got competition. Let's see what we got here. Not only did I get a really cool knife, I made a really cool friend, I want to say. If he's watching this, he might be like, okay, that's a little aggressive on the relationship status. But I connected with a really great seller, let's just say that. A connection, I made a connection. And he made this happen, which, hey, at least I count him one of my friends. If not the other way around. All right, guys, I don't often get this excited for a knife, so I need to get my mental state to a place where I do not get disappointed here. Craig Brown for Brown Knives is located about 30 minutes from my home here in Bellingham, Washington. He's based out of Blaine. And there it is. He makes the FSD and the Mini FSD. And I have been patiently pursuing one of these. So welcome home. Number 96, I believe it is. I'm so stoked. And I love the pattern on this. Now, if you follow the show, I also unboxed recently the full-size FSD. I'm finding these knives on the secondary market. Unfortunately, they are very hard to get direct from Craig Brown. That said, I'm seeing him do drops, you know, and bring out knives pretty frequently. It's just a matter of can he be the one that wins. All right, let's take a look. In fact, let me show you one more thing before we get into it, which is they come with the certificate of authenticity, number 96 here, CPM 154, handle material, etc. So that's always in here, hidden behind the phone. All right, a very hyped knife. Let's see if it's worth the hype. The blade is surprisingly large. Surprisingly large. Now, if it looks like there's a little something on it, it did just come out of the mailbox here. So it may have a little, may still have just a little bit of condensation on there. It's a button lock, but not your usual button lock. It pushes a liner inside when it closes it. Oops, total misfire there. User error. Just like its big brother, does everything right. Love this new look. It's not a new look, but this look versus the other one I have, and I'll pull my full size out in a second. I just want to give it its own attention. The reverse deployment on it is just phenomenal. The sound is phenomenal. I think for the Spidey flick, it's even better than the big one is, because it's kind of, the fit just fits a little better when you're doing it. One of the really cool things of the pattern on this is that the pattern continues over the pocket clip. Under the pocket clip, he'll usually have engraved in here, made in Blaine, WA. You can see it there. I think I'm upside down. There you go. Blaine, WA, USA. Centering, dead center. Rollout action, perfect. This one's pretty fresh. It just came from a drop a couple weeks ago, so it has not been manipulated much, and it feels it. Feel in hand is phenomenal. The regular grip is fine, more than enough. Heard a few times about people having issues with like grabbing the button to the point where it deploys, but see it, it's definitely possible. And then you can also get up here into the finger choil, which feels a little smaller than on the big one, but let's pull out the big one and do a quick comparison here. And so I have pattern number 1, as he calls it. He calls these patterns pattern 1 and pattern 2. Now on the Mini, it doesn't get smaller like that. It just kind of goes from the top to the bottom. So pattern number 1 on the Mini is a little different. But what I'm really shocked by is how similar the usable blade length is. It's almost the same. I do think you get a little more choil on the large one, which is nice. So you kind of lose a little bit of, it's pretty darn close. I think what's most amazing to me here is just the handle's much smaller, but the usable knife is very similar. Like the usability of the knife is not far off from the big brother there. Let's see if I can get the reverse going. One of my least favorite things to do is to reverse a knife for the first time looking through the camera. I called it reverse. I meant front flip a knife the first time while looking through the camera. They're both just such good knives. So stoked to have two. I've been on a little bit of a tear on Browns lately, so if you're not super familiar, he also makes the, let's get these organized here, or made, because I wouldn't say makes, but made the LHC. Here's an LHCX2, version 2. Really amazing knife. I have 3 of those, I think. 3, 2 and 1 in the mail. You can find those at phenomenal deals on the secondary market right now. Look out for those if you want a brown fast. It's awesome. And then the Cortex, which is perhaps an even better knife. It's just even smoother. It's the most gentle deployment that I've ever felt personally for like a flipper. It's really nice. So there you go. A little bit of Brown family growing here in the collection. Now, what I want to do is see if this right here is like a little oil stain on there or something. Let me grab a towel. See if that's something that comes off pretty easily or whatnot. Because I do see just a little discoloration through here, and that could definitely be something that happened during the satin grind finish. But it could just be the light playing tricks on me a little bit, but I'm pretty sure I see a little something in there. And I'll just hit it with my other rag here as well. There we go. I think it was just a little bit of oil on there or something. So I think that's gone now. But you know, when you're like a collector, these things will drive you crazy as you're sitting here trying to do the video. That's like all I could think of. And this one's got a pretty nice edge on it. Like one of the things is he doesn't put like a crazy edge on it. And I don't know if it's that he's trying to retain blade metal for his buyer to decide what kind of edge they want to put on it. I think that might be what he does. I'm not quite sure what the theory is, but it wouldn't be the first time that I got one that was not like particularly sharp, if that's the case. So let's pull out a piece of paper and take a look, because that's not something I've heard from a lot of the other reviews. I don't know if they were prototypes or whatever that got sharpened better, but I've not really heard a lot of people say, hey, it's, you know, it doesn't have a great edge on it, but it's pretty good. Certainly not the best. It's not a Spyderco edge, but especially in the middle of the blade, it is pretty damn good. So no problem with that one. You can see this other one here. Let's see how it is. Yeah, like almost a really poor edge in the middle of the blade. And it could be that I was, that this one was used a little bit or something. I did get it on the secondary, but I was told that that one was a brand new one. So I don't want to, you know, make any, without knowing for sure, without having bought the knife myself from Brown Knives, I can't make an assessment as to whether or not that edge is good. I have heard this now a few times. It's been brought up. Man, they put a beautiful hollow grind on that thing though. It really is something else. It's very hard to show a hollow grind on a cell phone camera, I find. Let me see if I can do it though here for you. it is just so thin versus, I mean, I think you can tell now. Let's see if I can get this focused in the right area where this will really show. But it is just an amazingly thin little edge there. Really cool. Not a lot of knives that come from the factory with an edge like that. So, yeah, he's done it again. The Mini FSD, it is a real gem. I heard from quite a few people and very good knife reviewers that they kind of like the Mini better. And I gotta be honest, I don't agree. I do like it. It feels great. But I don't like it better. And it seems like that was kind of a thing where like consistently, not consistently, but like a few reviewers really said this is, you know, a more better knife. I don't know. I really like the large one. The large one's impressive to me. And it's not very heavy. It's, you know, 5 ounces or whatever. So it's very usable despite its size. I'd say for EDC, sure, certainly this is a little better. But as like a knife collector, the let me just put some knives away here. What you'll notice about every one of these ones that I put away is how drop shut they are. Not a lot of knives that come out of the factory like that. Certainly some, but you know, it's a select few. So let's maybe put these up next to some other knives. And sometimes lately I've been thinking it might be better to do size comparisons this way as opposed to this way, because if you're doing the size comparison this way, while looking on a camera that's tilted back, it's kind of deceiving. So there's a Hinderer XM18. Let's put that guy over here next to the big guy because they're pretty similar. There's a Demco 80-20.5. Let me pull out a textured one, a textured tie one, just because, you know, it seems more appropriate. Here's a full-size Demco 80-20. So we'll put that maybe over here, take out the Hinderer for a second. Benchmade bug out. Benchmade bug out mini, if that's what you have. Tactile Rockwell. Very, very similar. I'd say that this brown is what a lot of people want that knife to be, but it also costs twice as much or more, 2.5 times as much money, unfortunately. But I'd say a lot of people want this to be a little bigger, and that's kind of it. Spyderco Pair 3. Maybe while we're at that, we'll pull out the Pair 2 and put it up against the big brown here. I need to leave this one out. I keep having to open it up and pull it out here. So there's the Pair 3 there. And don't sleep on that wee banter. Now I should be doing this with the blades out, but I guess that is one of the advantages of doing the knives that way, is that you can have the blades out more easily. So the wee banter there as a size comparison. It's probably good. Probably covers most of you out there. I'll pull out the Devo Stout because it's one that I love. Pretty similar in size. This was one of my favorite EDCs of the year. Very similar in size. Let's get a little weigh in on it. I think that'd be great. Weigh it against its big brother here, which I think is, again, a little over, it's like 5.1 ounces maybe. So big brother comes in 5.18. Little brother comes in 4.1. So it's really right in there with that. Like, I'd say the one that it competes most directly with is the Demco 80-20.5. Super similar, super duper similar in so many ways here. Let's get the blades out and just compare these two, because I think These are the ones that come to mind the most for me when I think of this knife. And I will just, whoa, sorry. Get this up here a little higher, because this will help with the perspective and stuff. So that gives you a real sense of where it fits against the Demco 80-20.5. Super similar in size. Very, very, very similar. Just a tad bit longer than the Demco. And then big brother there. You have to back out even a little further. Show that one. And put that up against the Demco full-size 80-20, which again is just, those two are, this is very interesting actually, how similar in size these knives are versus the Demcos. I don't think I realized how close everything was. I think these are just, I think these two are honestly like my favorite knives right now. If you could get these more readily, both of them, you know, this is 625. It's a much heavier knife. It's probably weighs like 2.5 ounces more. 800 in CPM 154, 850 in CPM 20 CV, or 825 or 850, something like that. And then same over here, but this is made out of Taiwan, so 375 in, again, 800 or 825 or 850 or whatever. So, you know, I think they're much more expensive, even if both are made in the USA, which is interesting. I think Demco's doing much higher volume though. So obviously not, no, on their USA made knives, they are doing much higher volume. They're, for instance, here's the 80-20S. Let me make a little room here. Here's the 80-20S. They are starting to do quite a few of these. I actually just grabbed one on drop today, which is exciting. I've never bought a Demco USA made knife on a drop. I've gotten every single one secondhand, secondary market, paid a premium. So it's really cool to get to grab one today. But there's an 80-20S, which are becoming, you know, they're starting to drop these in hundreds. So I think just in this month alone, I've seen a few hundred drop between Blade HQ, DLD VIP, who else did them? Knife Joy, DLT Trading. These are starting to, I'm not saying they're high volume, but a much higher volume than what Braden's doing. But let's not make this a Demco video, which I have a habit of doing. I just think it's just a really direct, very similar comparison. Now, from like a user interaction perspective, it's actually much more similar to a Spyderco in a lot of ways, because the button on the Spyderco Para 3 and Para 2 is over here, which is actually in a very similar place. I don't know if that's where you got the design idea from, of putting the button on the back side, but if you're familiar with, I think it's called the gravity lock. It's right over here. And the interaction with this knife, with the choil, how it is and everything, is actually very similar. And sorry, I just did some work on this one, so it's a little tight right now, but you know, pull this guy out. Yeah, this actually reminds me a lot of using, and I've got what's happening right now is I've got my camera head height because of the perspective, and it's like I can't see what I'm doing. Let's get this back down to earth. Overall, I'd say delivers as promised. I would say I was expecting to kind of feel, and what I got to do, because sometimes you do this video and you got the camera in front of you and everything, and you can't really get a feel for it. The feel in hand, though, is very good. Where I would be concerned with this is that lock pressure, and if you're up in this position and you're putting pressure back on it, I don't mind the idea of the lock coming undone too often. It's not going to be that big of a deal too often, unless you're like in this position. And then if you were to unlock it and push that down into your finger, that could be pretty bad. So I know this is not a new recommendation, but it's one of the few button locks where it's really above the handle, and that certainly is a problem. See, you did some very subtle design differences on the pivot there. I wonder if it's the same pivot hardware. It looks like it's the same pivot hardware. Slightly different, but generally the same button from the FSD. Man, these things are hard to come by too. I'm just so excited to have it here. I am thrilled. So, you know, I got to go spend some time with it in hand and see, you know, because I think overall, again, the thing that's blowing me away the most is how much, maybe I can put these up back to back. You're getting so much of the same blade cutting length. You really just, you're not sacrificing a lot going from the FSD to the Mini FSD. And the FSD just has, for most people, a little too much handle. Like, I don't really need, this is like, I'm not even in the choil. If I'm in the choil, I'm getting, you know, I'm hanging out that high. Now, granted, some people have massive hands and they'll really love the FSD for that. But I think for the average person like me that has an XL hand, you know, and again, XL is not, it's kind of a normal, full-grown American man hand, right? If you're around 5'9" to 6'1" or something like that, you probably have an XL glove. Maybe it's 5'10" to 6'1" or something like that. You know, the weight matters too and all that, but that's not unusual, right, for an American male. So this feels like more than enough handle, more so than I feel like that with the Demcos. With the Demco, this feels like a much smaller knife than an 8020S, whereas here you don't really notice it that much, which is really nice. You don't want to feel like, even though you're on an EDC focused knife, that you're sacrificing handle comfort. And this one doesn't. And a big part of that is that this knife is pretty wide. So let me get like a factory Para 3 over here, which is considered a fairly wide knife. You can see it's just as wide. You know, it's a pretty wide knife, whereas something like a Demco is quite a bit thinner. It's not a huge amount, maybe 20%, maybe 20% thinner or something like that. You know, or something like the Tactile. You're coming in, again, maybe it's not that bad. It's really not that wide, is it? But it feels wide in hand, so that's great. That's really what you want, is to be compact but not feel compact. And I'd say that he accomplished that beautifully here. So overall, fantastic. I gotta go out to dinner. I'm super tempted to bring that with. I haven't decided yet whether this is something I'm gonna carry or not, but man, that would be a really nice carry out to dinner right now with the family. Yeah, thanks to the seller if you end up seeing this video. I really appreciate you making it available. The seller was a little on the fence as to whether or not to let this one go. And I hope I can return the favor at some point. So that's all for now. Thanks. Please like, subscribe. Let me know if there's some other, I'm going to be spending quite a bit of time on these knives, but let me know if there's some other content or questions you have about it, and I'll try and you know, put out some content around whatever questions you may have. But very excited to have it in the collection, and yeah, I would say it generally delivers as promised and does what this does in a more compact EDC type format, you know, 20-25% smaller package, which will resonate with the average person a bit more. This big one though, they're, you know, I'm not gonna say they're readily available, but there's starting to be some on the secondary market for people that are switching to the Mini, and you can get them for maybe like 10 or 20% less cost, which is, you know, you're getting more knife for less money. That's a very good thing. And I think eventually there's only, what, 400 of these made, 300, 400 of these made. It's hard to imagine that these don't become kind of grill knives that are very expensive on the secondary. And for that reason, I only have one. I have one FSD full size that I consider carrying because it's, it has like a factory flaw, I think, or maybe it's, you know, who knows how it happened, but there's like a scratch on the inside. So I have another video coming out with that, but that one, I got for a price where I consider carrying it and stuff. But generally, you can imagine these are going to sit in some collections. But a lot of people do carry them and love them for all the reasons that we've talked about. So I will see you on the next one, and take care.